In 1942, a young woman in a small English village fell in love with an American soldier named Bobby. He promised he'd come back for her. He never did, but he left something behind. And here's the thing nobody tells you. That woman's story was happening to tens of thousands of British women at the exact same time. And the children they left behind? The US government tried to make sure you'd never find out about them. This is the story they buried for 80 years. Before we go any further, I need to tell you about a document. In 1942, the United States military handed every single American soldier arriving in Britain a small booklet. It told them what to eat, how to behave, what to say. But buried on page 14 was a warning. A warning so specific, so deliberately worded, that when historians found it decades later, they couldn't believe it had been written at all. I'm going to tell you exactly what that warning said. But first, you need to understand what was actually happening on the ground in Britain in 1942. Because nothing about this story is what you were taught. It's 1942. Britain has been at war for 3 years. The food is gone. Rationing is brutal. Families are surviving on 1 egg per week. Butter measured in grams. Meat a distant memory. The men are away. Fighting in North Africa, the Pacific, Europe. The cities are bombed out. London looks like the surface of the moon. Women are running the factories, raising the children alone, writing letters to husbands they haven't seen in 2 years. The country is exhausted, frightened, and quietly falling apart. And then, almost overnight, everything changed. 1.5 million Americans arrived. 1.5 million. Think about that number. That's more than the entire population of Birmingham arriving in your country inside 18 months. They came pouring off ships into Liverpool, Bristol, Southampton. Young men, mostly in their early 20s, from New York, from Texas, from California, and they brought with them something Britain hadn't seen in years: hope, energy, and an absolute mountain of chocolate. Okay? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because the British reaction to all of this wasn't just gratitude. It was something far more complicated. And one phrase, coined by a British soldier, summed it up perfectly. 4 words that became so famous they were repeated in Parliament. I'll tell you what those 4 words were in just a moment. But first, you need to understand why British men were absolutely furious. Here's a fact that will make everything make sense. In 1942, a British soldier earned about 14 shillings a week. An American GI earned 5 times that. 5 times. So while British men were away fighting, literally dying for their country for 14 shillings a week, these American guys were rolling into their villages with money to burn. They were buying rounds at the pub, bringing nylon stockings as gifts, nylons that British women hadn't seen since before the war. They had cigarettes, they had chocolate, they had chewing gum. To a country that had been surviving on almost nothing for 3 years, these men seemed almost impossibly glamorous, and British women noticed. Now, those 4 words I promised you. A British soldier, watching an American GI charm yet another group of local women, turned to his mate and said, "Overpaid, oversexed, and over here." It became the most repeated phrase in wartime Britain. But the Americans had a comeback. They said the British soldiers were underpaid, undersexed, and under Eisenhower. But underneath the jokes, something far more significant was happening. Relationships were forming, thousands of them. And not all of them were going to end well. Let's be clear about something. The vast majority of these relationships were genuine. Young men, thousands of miles from home, terrified they might die. Young women, lonely, their boyfriends and husbands away at war, living under the constant threat of bombing. These weren't just wartime flings. Many of them were real, deep, desperate love. A young woman from Devon named Margaret would later write in her diary, "He made me feel like the world outside the war still existed. Like there was still something worth surviving for." Over 70,000 British women ended up marrying their American soldiers. 70,000. They became known as the GI brides. After the war, they boarded ships and sailed to America, leaving behind their families, their villages, everything they'd ever known, to start new lives in a country they'd never visited with a man they'd known for less than 2 years. Some of those stories had happy endings. But here's the thing nobody talks about. For every woman who got a wedding ring, there were many more who got absolutely nothing. Historians have tried for decades to calculate the exact number. They can't, because the records were deliberately incomplete, but the estimates range from 22,000 to 100,000. 100,000 children, born to British mothers, with American fathers who had vanished. And what happened to those children is one of the most heartbreaking and deliberately hidden stories of the entire war. But before I tell you that story, I need to tell you about the document. Remember the booklet I mentioned at the start? Page 14. Here's what it said. The booklet was called A Short Guide to Great Britain. It was written by the U.S. War Department and given to every single American soldier arriving in Britain. Most of it was practical. Don't make fun of British food. Don't boast about American wages. Don't call it England when you mean Britain. But buried inside was a passage about relationships with British women. And it said, and I'm paraphrasing, that American soldiers should treat British women with respect, that these were not women to be taken advantage of, that their husbands and boyfriends were fighting and dying for the same cause. Sounds reasonable, right? Except here's what the booklet didn't say. It didn't tell soldiers what to do if they got a British woman pregnant. It didn't tell them what their legal obligations were. It didn't give British women any information about their rights. Because here's the cold reality. Under U.S. military law, an American soldier could not be forced to pay child support to a foreign national. Could not be forced. It was built into the system, and the U.S. military and the British government both knew it. So what actually happened to these children? Let me walk you through it. A British woman discovers she's pregnant. Her American boyfriend has either shipped out to Europe or, in some cases, has simply disappeared. Maybe he lied about being single. Maybe he panicked. Maybe he genuinely didn't know. She is now unmarried, pregnant, in 1940s Britain. You have to understand what that meant. Unmarried mothers in 1940s Britain were treated as a source of shame. Families disowned their daughters. Landlords evicted them. Employers fired them. The church condemned them. Many were sent to mother and baby homes, institutions that were closer to prisons than care facilities. They were made to work, told to repent, and in many cases, pressured to give up their babies for adoption. The children who were kept faced a different kind of difficulty. They grew up without fathers in a society that made sure they knew it. Called bastards in the street, Yankee brats in the playground, and they grew up being told one of two things. Either your father died in the war, a lie that was impossible to disprove, or simply nothing. Silence, a blank where half their identity should have been. These children grew up, had children of their own, and the question never went away. Who was my father? Where did I come from? Does anyone in America know I exist? In 1942 America, racial segregation was the law. The U.S. Army was completely segregated. Black soldiers ate separately, slept separately, were given different, worse assignments. White American officers tried to export that system to Britain. They actually went to British pub landlords and village officials and told them, asked them, to refuse service to black soldiers, to treat them the way they were treated back home. The British response was, almost universally, no. British people had no framework for American-style racism. They'd never been taught to see the world that way, and they weren't about to start. Black GIs were welcomed into British homes, invited to Sunday dinners, danced at village halls. One Black American soldier wrote home to his mother, "For the first time in my life, I feel like a full human being." Relationships formed, children were born, and those children faced something the other GI babies didn't. They were illegitimate in the eyes of the law, and visibly mixed race in a 1940s Britain that had no idea what to do with them. Many were placed in care homes, some specifically for mixed-race children, and spent their entire childhoods institutionalized, cut off from both their American heritage and their British one, belonging fully to neither. And here's where the story becomes something extraordinary. Because those children grew up, and in the 1980s and 1990s, now in their 40s and 50s, they started looking. They wrote letters to the US military. Most got nothing back. They hired private investigators, dead ends. They placed ads in American newspapers, sometimes a response, usually silence, and then DNA testing arrived. And everything changed. Suddenly, a woman in Birmingham could spit into a tube and discover she had half-siblings in Chicago. A man in Cornwall could find out his father hadn't died in the war. He'd lived until 1987. Had a family. Had other children who had no idea he existed. Some reunions were joyful. Some were devastating. Families who refused to acknowledge them. Doors slammed in their faces. Some found only graves. And some are still searching today. Right now, in 2026. Children of World War II GIs, now in their late 70s and 80s, still trying to find out who their fathers were before it's too late. Here's what I want you to take away from this. History always focuses on the big moments. D-Day, victory in Europe, the end of the war, the parades, the celebrations, Churchill on the balcony. But history almost never talks about what got left behind. 22,000 to 100,000 children, born from love, or loneliness, or desperation, or deception, growing up without fathers, without answers, without half their identity. The war ended in 1945. For these children, it never really did. If this story affected your family, if you're one of the people still searching, there are organizations that can help. GI Trace in the UK has reunited hundreds of families. The link is in the description. And if this video made you feel something, share it. Because somewhere out there, there's someone who needs to see it. Someone who's been asking the same question their entire life.